Hello and welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. Today we have a very interesting guest, and I'm very proud to have him on my show, John Frydman, who is from he's from Great Lakes Financial Partners, which is a member of John Hancock Financial Network, and he's been helping families and businesses realize their financial goals for many years. I think it was over 20 years?
Yes, over 20 years.
Oh my God, welcome John to Cahnmann's
Thank you very much.
Roundtable.
Welcome, happy to be here.
Thank you. And one of the reasons I did have John on my show was something that came up in our own family, and I felt it was very important because what's happening in the community lately, that because of the economy, a lot of people are letting go of their insurance policies. And that is something that we need really to talk about, because it's not only their insurance policies, their disability policies, their long-term care policies, because of financial problems, you know, that they're having with the economy. And one of the things that I saw that happened in our own family was a cousin of mine who was, you know, she's in her 40s, her husband's was in his 40s, 3 children, and one of the children has special needs, and they had a policy. And it was an insurance policy, and because he was in the 40s and he was and John, he was in wonderful shape. He worked out all the time, he took his vitamins and everything you could possibly do. He stayed thin and was healthy, and he took his policy, cashed it in. Because he felt he didn't need it. Well, why do I need it? I'm in my 40s, nothing's going to happen to me probably until I'm older, and I need my money now. Takes the money out, and he gets a very rare form of cancer, stomach, and he passes away before his 50th birthday, leaving his 3 children and his wife completely uninsured with no money. And the reason I'm telling this story, because I think this is something that could happen to any one of us, and we think that we're not going to die until we're like 90 plus, and this is what happens. And maybe you could tell our audience how the story could have turned out a little bit different.
Well, you know, if unfortunate, that's a scenario that happens, you know, not frequently, but it does happen. And I think that if, you know, the scenario would have been if they understood that, you know, life insurance is to protect your family, because you never know when you're not going to be here anymore. And so the way that you sort of take a look at your situation globally is you have to figure out, you know, what is the purpose of my insurance? You know, how am I using it to protect myself, really protect my family, because it's not for the person who passes away, it's for people who are left behind. Right. So that they're able to stay in their home and live their life the same way they did before the situation occurred. And it comes down to understanding what's long term, what your needs are. And in our practice, in our business, what we try to do is take a look at someone's financial picture. And one of the things I like to talk about is the financial house. Okay. Because I think that's very important when you have a foundation.
I think we have a financial house on our thing that we could show. There it is. I see our financial house coming up there.
Great.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Just like when you're building a house, you know, you have on the bottom you put cement, and the house is on a solid foundation. So in our business, you want to look at income protection. So that includes your life insurance, disability, long-term care insurance. Annuities do provide income. The second level of a house you really want to talk about is savings. Okay. You know, you want to have 3 to 6 months of savings set aside in case you had an emergency purpose. So savings could be, you know, regular savings accounts, money market accounts, it could be CDs. So money that you have access to, money that's never really invested in a long-term situation.
Thank you for the house.
Yeah, okay. You're welcome. And you know, it's just to give people an idea and a focus of where to go.
Yeah. So anyway, so as we see, that we were looking at the financial house, and I can see that. So people don't realize all these different things that, you know, he was thinking when my cousin, he was looking for his family, he didn't see the whole picture. Is that what you were saying? He just got rid of it and thinking, hey, what do we need it for? I'm not going to need it until later on in my life, not realizing he had to protect his family.
Or possibly thought maybe he can get it later on in life that would come back into play for him.
Yeah, I think he did mention he would probably get it later.
So when you're taking a look at your plan, when you work with a financial advisor or someone, your financial professional, someone you can go to ask these questions, because sometimes you want to go to that person and say, I'm thinking about this. So one of the ways that I understand my client's situation is when I first start meeting with them, I do a thing called a fact finder. It's like going to your doctor's office. When they take an intake about your history, we do the same thing, a similar type of thing. I ask them about breaking down their situation from their goals to their values, and then taking the financial house, because a lot of times people have a lot of these pieces put together, just haven't had a focus on it. So if you take a look at money for 1 to 3 years, then you break it down money for 10 to 20 years, and then your retirement box, or we call the bucket method of savings, 1 to 3 years, 5, 15 to 20, and retirement.
So you say that what he should have done before he terminated his insurance, he should have gone to his financial advisor and say, look, I possibly don't need this insurance now, I really need the money. Is there anything that maybe he could have just had a term insurance until he, some kind of a different type of insurance until he got till his income maybe. That's
a possibility. It depends on what the person was feeling. Sometimes you can't make people change their mind. They've already made a decision. So I think
they should go to their financial advisor.
Always.
And I think if I remember my cousin telling me something that he didn't, he just did it on his own, and I don't even know if she was even aware that he did it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
But I think it's just looking at the total picture for yourself. I mean, because if you have a family, you want to make sure that you protect them in case you're not here anymore. I mean, it does happen, that people do, die unexpectedly, and if you don't have that in place, then situations where sometimes people have to sell their home or make a lifestyle change or that type of thing. But going back to the financial house a little bit, what's really important is people should have 3 to 6 months of savings set aside in case things change in their life, so they can access those dollars versus going to insurance dollars. Because the idea behind insurance is you want to leave dollars to the family in case something happens to you, or when something happens to you, because we all know that it's only when. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
That's why I brought this up, because it left them completely uninsured. They had to move out of their house. They couldn't afford to stay in that house. They had to look around. It was very, very difficult for her.
It's
extremely difficult.
And it's very heartbreaking.
It was very heartbreaking. She's in her 40s, 3 children, and nothing, left with nothing. Yeah. And and that could happen to anybody.
Right.
We don't realize that. I mean, we're thinking, oh, we're young, we can get away with it, and we can't always get away with it. And like for instance, I know somebody that was, and also people have to think of long term. They have to think of disability. Somebody that I know, and this was a real story. It sounds like a fantasy story, but somebody that I know went to bed one night. He was healthy and got up in the morning and he couldn't walk, and he hasn't been able to walk since. He has paralysis of the legs, and he and he's somebody like that. You would never think, he was a man in this happened to him, and he was in his 50s, and this happened.
Well, hopefully he has some disability coverage, because disability covers those types of issues. You have to have something in place to replace your income, because if you're disabled and you can't work, how are you going to create income to pay your mortgage, to pay your car payment, to pay your college bills if you have children at college age? That's what disability is. It's an income replacement. Possibly, he may have that in place, and I hope that's the case, but a lot of times this is a way to protect your income. It's the money-making machine that a person creates every day, and if they can't have the ability to create it and they're sick, how are they going to pay for their bills? And that's where a lot of people get in financial trouble, because the disability, you can live a very long time with a disability, and if you don't have any type of income replacement to cover those needs, then you may have financial problems. Now you may have other savings, and hopefully you set those things aside, but you just never know when those situations occur.
Exactly. I mean, somebody can set things aside, but do they? More people when they're younger, they set things aside maybe for their children, for college, and they don't think of disability. Right. And disability could happen to anybody. I'll give you another situation. Another friend of mine went in the hospital for a hernia operation, and during her operation, or right after the operation, she got a stroke, and she had to have a triple bypass. And I do not think she has long-term care insurance. Here she's got another disability and long-term care, and there's now another scenario where this is happening. So, John, let me tell our viewers possibly what can they do as far as how, we never think of these things because, when you're well and you're healthy and you're young, you don't think, who's going to think of long-term care, who's going to think of disability, who's going to think of some of these things. When should people really put this together for them? And the reason, again, I'm doing this show is because of the economy, and I know people feel that they have to put, they can't, it's a waste of money to do insurance because they have other bills to take care of. But when you have these situations come up, my God, this could wipe a whole family out for the rest of their life. And maybe even parents that have to help and other people have to help them out. So maybe you could tell people when people need to do these things to protect themselves.
As soon as they possibly can. You have to I think when you start talking with a financial advisor and you do a fact finder, you have to take a look at what you have in savings. If you can, number one, increase those savings, start putting some dollars away towards that. Maybe at the same time, take a little bit of those dollars and put it away into some type of, if disability is more a need for you, or for sure life insurance if you have a young family that you need to protect those assets. I think those are the types of things you have a conversation with your financial professional. Understanding so that professional can understand who you are, what your values are, and what you're trying to accomplish. And then they can lay out a program for you so that you can look at, 1 to 3 years, 5 to 15 years, and retirement. Because sometimes life insurance, you need it for your whole life. Sometimes there's things that you might need beyond when your children grow up and move out of the house. Sometimes companies do provide disability benefits. So you want to look at your benefits. A lot of times this time of year people are renewing their benefits, so they need to really look at what their companies are offering in those benefits. So and understand them, because I think that you should take those benefits and look them over, or bring them to your financial professional and help them discuss it with you, because sometimes there's gaps in those coverages. So you can look at that. With life insurance, I think it starts right away. I think it starts as soon as you can afford to start putting away some money for yourself. And there's different types of life insurance. I don't think we have time to talk about each kind on this program, but I think when you go talk to your financial professional, they can explain to you the different types, what you can get for those coverages, and all that is based on your health. So, you're never, obviously, as young as you are today, and you may not be as healthy as you are today, possibly. So you have to look at those scenarios, and that could help you determine, what is important, sort of like an A, B, C, D list. And, when you look at and you have an idea what's your financial house. Like I said earlier in this program, you really got to build a solid foundation. I think that's very, very important. Insurance, savings, and then you look towards investments. Because you have those things in place when the economy goes bad, or you lose a job or something in that scenario, that you have money to go to tide you over until you get that next job possibly, or If you have a disability, there's money coming in.
Right, and there's a lot of jobs now that are not offering. A lot of people, you know, feel, well, when I get to my job, they'll offer me this and they'll offer me that. But there's a lot of these perks that people that used to have in jobs, they no longer provide it. So people have to provide for themselves as well. Am I correct about that?
That's right. I mean, so if you think about it, life insurance protects you if something's not happens to you. Disability protects your income, and long-term care really will protect you if you have a need for dressing and bathing and toiling, getting out of bed or chair. If you think of your first about hour of every day, that's what long-term care can provide for you, a long-term care insurance policy.
Well, let me ask you, John, but how old should a person be when, you know, I think this is really important, we'll continue talking about, how old should a person be to take it out? Because I have a friend who she would die for long-term care, but she has a heart condition and she has other physical problems that she has now, and she no longer can get long-term care. She's, you know, she's in her 60s and she cannot get long-term care because she has all kinds of other situations that happen, and she's been turned down by she's tried so many different companies and she's been turned down by every one of them. So what age do you recommend for a person to think about getting long-term care?
You know, it's really hard for me to put an exact age on it, because...
But approximately 40s, 50s?
Well, I mean...
While you're healthy?
While you're healthy. It really comes down to why you're healthy. You know, because I do have clients in their 30s that bought long-term care insurance, and I have clients in their 60s that bought long-term care insurance.
But if they're in their 60s, it's more expensive.
Correct.
And if they have anything wrong...
It's based on your age. So your age, and it's based on how much you want per day and how many years. There's a lot of factors that go into buying some long-term care, but you really should honestly talk to your financial professional. You know, sit down with them, have them, because if they understand your budget and what you can afford and what you can do, then they can help you design a program that makes sense for you, for your particular situation. And you know, because if somebody has a long-term care need, you know, it could be a few years, it could be going on for a very long time, depending on if it's an Alzheimer's situation. That could be a very long-term situation. So where are you going to get the money to cover those needs? And that's what really insurance is, helping you cover those types of needs, whether you're thinking of life or disability or long-term care. I think as soon as you possibly can, you know, I think you want to look into these types of products and make sure they're right for you. You know, I mean, you know, from my perspective, I think they're right for everybody, but you have to look at each case-by-case basis, because everyone has a different situation, you know, and you have to look at it. And by doing like when we do fact-finding, you know, almost you really uncover what the situation is, so you can say, okay, here's your particular situation. Here's how, you know, we could really you can benefit from these types of products that you are looking at.
Wow, because people just don't think in advance of what you know. People need to prepare before it gets too late, because a lot of people lose jobs, they lose their benefits. New jobs, no benefits. If you get disabled, what happens to your retirement? I mean, that could wipe a whole family out. You know, look at that. What's her name? Gabrielle Gifford, but it's, you know, that got shot. Yeah. Do you know how many years? I mean, they have to work with her. She has to have physical therapy, occupational therapy, all kinds of things, and she's still paralyzed. You know, she's the one that the senator. I believe I think she was a senator or state, I always get confused, congressman maybe.
I think she was a congressman.
Congressman, right, she was a congressman. And, you know, it's very difficult. And looking at my friend, looking at my girlfriend who went in for a simple hernia operation and came out completely disabled, which it's been very, very hard on the family and very hard on us as friends, and you know, that, you know, and we can see she's going to have at least, she's been in the hospital for 3 months already. Can you imagine that bill? Plus she needs occupational and physical therapy. It's going to be years before, you know, she even, you know, and I don't think she has any disability. I don't think she has any long-term care.
Well, the long-term care sounds like that would be a scenario, where it might cover the benefits living at home, because
if she had long-term
right.
care. Now, I don't think, knowing her, she did not buy long-term care.
Yeah, I don't.
I really don't think. But if she had long-term care, what would they have done for what?
Well, first of all, what would happen is once there was a possible need, there'd be a needs assessment. Somebody would come in and assess what she needs. So one of the companies, whatever the carriers that she got the insurance coverage from, the long-term care coverage from, would send out some type of caregiver, give some type of assessment, and then they would put together a plan. So whether she needs to, because if she can live in her own home, maybe she wants to be there. Most people do better in their own home. So they would come in and they would, cover that. With long-term care, there's a term called activities of daily living. It's, again, I think I might have mentioned earlier, but it's for dressing, it's for bathing, it's for any type of cognitive impairment, anything that you're going to need to help yourself get, going for the day or even during their day. And, whether it can cover skill care, and it can cover care for somebody living in their home. So, skill care is like a nursing home. Nursing care covers your nursing home, covers your assisted living. It covers those types of facilities, and especially, I think, being in your own home, you're more comfortable when you're receiving the care. So I think that's where the benefit would come into play, and if she would have that, if she has it, or could have that in place, then that would also help, not just financially. I think there's an emotional aspect to care. The person who's getting the care may not realize that they need this care, and the person who's given the care, it's very hard on them. Families don't live by each other anymore as much as they, we're living all over. So how's that person gonna help them if someone's living in a different state, to change their whole life? And,
and we don't want our parents and our family to, have to be in a nursing home. I mean, I think, and then you have somebody that's staying with you in your home. They can drive you to their appointments,
right.
Your physical therapy appointments that's needed. And they do so much better. People don't realize, hey, and I think it's very important if people are waiting. I just noticed an article from the Wall Street Journal that long-term care gets the axe, and the White House decides one part of health overhaul law will prove too costly. So if they're looking for their for them to be covered through the new, the new Obama health care plan, or they're thinking that maybe their employers will cover for them. A lot of them are not doing that anymore, and they cannot look forward to this in the new health care plan. The health care plan will cover some things, but it's definitely not covering long-term care.
Right, yeah, so that might be a reason to talk to your financial professional, get some advice on how it works, what are the benefits for that particular policy, and then they can explain to that person the benefits, and then the person can make an educated decision on how that would fit in their whole financial situation.
Yeah, because a lot of times businesses and employers used to, they used to bend over backwards. If they wanted you to be their employee, they would cover this and cover that, and now most time they're hiring you as consultants nowadays. You're not getting, so they don't have to pay the benefits. Is that
I mean,
yeah,
I think that's happening a lot. Businesses have to look at their bottom line, and so sometimes the person that's not in that bottom line is the individual employee. So we have to take care of ourselves, and it comes back to looking at your total financial picture. Because it's not an individual product that you're looking for. It's coming with a plan of action. What is my plan of action? How are things going to look for me? Because you can't plan always plan that a future event's going to happen, but you have to plan for it. So you have to look for what are possibilities, what could happen to me, and especially when you have families, they get impacted. Whether it's a death, whether it's a disability, or whether it's a long-term care, situation where someone needs some type of help on a day-to-day basis. When someone has disability, they can no longer put into a retirement plan because they're no longer working, because a disability the money you get from your policy is not an income. It's a payment to you. So, how are you going to plan for, not putting away in your retirement plans anymore? So, again, it comes down to taking a step-by-step approach. Starting with being open with your financial advisor, saying, okay, here are my needs. Here's what's happening in my life. Here's what I have so far in savings. Here's what I have in investments. Can I look at these types of products for myself to truly help me? And I think that's a discussion that I think you need to have.
Well, it sounds very that people need to plan. Like, I never thought about this before, but people, don't understand this. I think people, this looks, they see something on television, maybe I'll get this, or maybe I'll get that. They have all these different things. Well, you could buy some insurance, term insurance for 35 cents a day. It's advertised on television, and people think, oh, that's a good idea. And, in fact, I think we were talking about that earlier, that the 35 cents a day insurance only covers you for just maybe 5 years or so. Or maybe, it doesn't, the one you see on television, these ads, these Cahnmann ads, gee, buy insurance, it's only 35 cents a day, and, you get covered. But then I found out that you don't get covered for all your life. You may be only covered for 5 years.
Well, that sounds like it's a term insurance policy. Right. So you have to look at.
But people don't realize it only covers for just a short period of time.
Sometimes.
It sounds good. Hey, 35 cents a day, I could afford that. It's less than they say, less than a postage stamp. Right. That's the advertisement, less than a postage stamp.
Well,
yeah.
Again, it comes down to, in looking at your financial, your whole picture. You have to look at the whole picture. What are your needs? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? I can't stress that enough, because I think sometimes people get afraid when they're talking to a financial advisor. They're not as open as they are with their doctor. As you're talking, I was thinking that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do their own financial future.
They do,
and they need to take a hard look at themselves and find out what's important to them, and then take a look at what they can do for themselves and protect their family.
For the last couple of minutes that we have, do you have any words of wisdom for our audience and our viewers, what they can do to really think about this? You did mention they need to, and I think that's very good that you said that they plan on their vacations. They think of planning on their vacations, and they have a better idea of what they're going to do. And I think that maybe people don't realize that their financial advisor, if they possibly want to talk to you, your website is on there. But if they want to talk we have 2 minutes to sum this up. What is your recommendation for people? Your words of wisdom.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I do appreciate it. These types of topics are very close and dear to my heart. Because I see people all the time when they have situations and they have unexpected situations occur to them. And I think the words of wisdom would be, number one, first of all, talk to your family, talk to your spouse or significant other, have that conversation, make sure that you're open with that, and then go to your financial advisor, if you have one, or a financial professional.
Think of him as your doctor, right?
Correct.
Almost.
Right.
Your internist, your family, sort of like a family doctor, type of thing. That's a good idea for people to really think of that, because it's like a family doctor in a way.
And to be open with them, and whatever financial needs that you have, and so if they if they don't have a financial advisor, you can always reach me. You can look my website is www.johnfrydman.com, or they can call me at my office at 847-698-4840.
Well, thank you so much, John. I appreciate this, and I think we got, not only do my friends, but their grandchildren, I hope they're listening, their children, I hope they're listening. And, and I'm so glad to have you on because what has happened that was very dear to my heart. Thank you very much for coming on our show today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And if you come back, I wish you'd come back when you can to give us more words of wisdom. Thank you very much. Get it? Okay. I was waiting when you wrapped up. I was waiting.
Public access is provided by the City of Highland Park and made possible in part by our sponsors. Ravinia Festival, CJE Senior Life, Gand Music and Sound,